Thus, it remains mystery whether Giselle himself will show his face in battle. Episode 11. Front page. Prince Raphael northeast of Dorat. The Prince army engaged the Goblin Man force, which approached from the north, in a battle northeast of Dorat and succeeded in driving them back. Princess Limsley herself accompanied the Goblin army, but it is thought that she safely withdrew to Soft Falena along with the core of the Goblin troops. The rebel army has gone too far even for them. Imagine to revolt against our fair queen herself, a Goblin spokesperson said. The people of Falena aren't buying this propaganda, however, and popular perception is that the Goblin themselves put Princess Limsley in harm's way. Back page. Leon severely injured. The Dawn Times have learned that the Prince's bodyguard Leon was critically wounded in a recent engagement northeast of Dorat. Even though he seems to have narrowly escaped death thanks to the healing effort of Dr. Silva, Leon remains in a coma, critically wounded. Without a hint of celebration anywhere in Sarah's Lake Castle over the recent victory, we have been strongly reminded of exactly how important Leon really is to our cause. Serials. Portrait of the Enemy, Queen's Knight. In the engagement northeast of Dorat, the Queen Knights, meant to serve and protect the royal house of Falena, were instead divided into two camps and forced to do battle, essentially destroying themselves from the inside. Today we focus on the Queen's Knight. Their history dates back to the founding of Falena, but they were originally a part of the Imperial Defense Knight with hundreds of members. But when the capital was relocated to Soft Falena, an Imperial Defense Corps was organized separately. Instead, the Queen's Knight were assigned as personal bodyguard to protect the Queen and her closest relative alone. Their number was also drastically reduced, with less than 10 at any given time. Being chosen as a Queen's Knight therefore meant being recognized as one of the best warriors in Falena. There was no higher honor. It is certainly distressing, then, to see warriors given such a distinguished honor become mere puppets of the Goblin faction. Issue 12, front page. Prince to meet with Dragon Cavalry. The Town has learned that the prince is scheduled to visit Sarni Castle to officially meet with the leader of the Dragon Cavalry. The cavalry is forbidden to get involved in domestic dispute within Falena. It seems unlikely that the prince will gain any immediate support from them. However, because it's impossible to deny the possibility that the Goblin faction, caught in an inferior military position, might conspire with foreign power, we believe the prince would like to discuss this scenario in advance with the Dragon Cavalry. Backpage. Oracle Haswar returned to Lunas. Ever since the Goblin faction occupied Soft Falena, the Oracle of Lunas, Haswar, has stayed at the Sun Palace as a show of support for Princess Limsley. However, we have received word that she returned to Lunas following the recent coronation of Her Royal Highness. Information within Soft Falena is being strictly regulated this day, so this rumor is difficult to confirm. However, we have received confirmation from several different channels. Serial. Portrait of the Enemy. 5 leads. It is with the deepest regret imaginable that Portraits of the Enemy runs this column. But there is no denying that it was Silence who interfered with the operation to rescue Princess Limsley during the engagement northeast of Dorat. Sadly, we now have no other choice but to call her an enemy. So what caused Silence sudden turns to the enemy side? An investigation revealed that her turn may not have been so sudden. About 10 years ago, Queen Falzram was crowned with the help of the Barus family. Despite this, however, she was always careful not to let her influence grow too great. To preserve the balance of power between senatorial faction, she engaged her second daughter, Silence, to be married to young Giselle of the Goblin family. However, Giselle and Silence, rather than being distressed about being forced together for political reasons, were actually quite pleased. In fact, Giselle is said to have practically worshipped Silence. It would probably be too simplistic to assume that Sally's relationship would probably too simplistic to assume that Sally's relationship with Giselle is the reason for her traitor's action. However, portraits of the enemy can find no other plausible explanation. Issues 13 on page. Dragon Cavalry promises cooperation. After a meeting at Sorny Castle with Commander Craig Leiden of the Dragon Cavalry, the prince received a firm promise of full cooperation in the event of foreign military intervention. The talk was quite cordial from beginning to end. Commander Leiden couldn't hide his sympathy for the prince's cause. However, the discussion didn't end with a simple confirmation of the Dragon Cavalry intention. Instead, they will take a much more active role than originally anticipated. Both Commander Craig Leiden and His Royal Highness the Prince are well aware that Falena will be in grave danger if the Godwin faction conspire with any foreign power. A spokesperson for the Prince said, the two sides will work together to actively pursue any leads on the matter. Peace. Leon recover. The prince returned home to a surprise after his meeting with Commander Craig Leiden of the Dragon Cavalry. Leon, who has been in coma, suddenly took a turn for the better and has regained consciousness. Her subsequent prognosis is turned out to be quite favorable. Some are of the opinion that the prince saved Leon by using the Dawn Rune's new power, but the downtime is unable to confirm the details of the story. Regardless, morale inside the castle has improved for the first time in what seems like ages. Material. Portraits of the enemy mysteries. On their way back from Sarony Castle, the prince was to investigate the ruins in the Dweep-like forest. Inside, they were suddenly attacked by a gigantic tree and forced to fight it off. Huge mysterious monster also appeared in the Ceres Lake ruins. While these creatures are not directly involved with the Lord Godwin forces, one can certainly call them enemies. Nonetheless, however, they seem to only appear in Sindar ruins. Why might this be? Issue 14, front page. Godwin began counteroffensive. In a daring pre-dawn attack, the Godwin army has quickly and decisively broke Dorat under their control. And we have word that in concurrent attack, the army's western mountain corps invaded Asris, and the army's southern mountain corps met and assault on Sable. With simultaneous attack in Dorat, Asris, and Sable, it seemed clear that the Godwin faction has made an alliance with the army's army, suddenly putting the prince in an inferior military position. Just as had been feared, the Godwin has conspired with the foreign power. But the Loyalist army had anticipated the possibility of an attack like this and came up with a detailed evacuation plan. In Sable, evacuation was carried out quickly. Everything went according to plan without a single casualty. In Dorat too, the evacuation proceeded smoothly, but poor Godwin residents refused to go along with the plan, choosing to stay behind. Now there is much concern about how the Godwin army will treat them. Some reports claim that Ashes fell without a fight, though the downtime has yet to confirm this. Next page. Alliance within Godwin and Armus. In the past, Lord Godwin has been quoted as saying that Falena should use the unparalleled might of the Sun Rune to take control of all barbaric nations. It has long been believed that were Lord Godwin in the position of military authority, the new Armus Kingdom would be first on his hit list. Armus too has long been aware of Godwin's supremacist belief and has never tried to conceal its animosity toward the Godwin faction. That is why this alliance is all the more incomprehensible. There are rumors that the Godwin faction has promised Armus some kind of grand reward for their cooperation, but our soldiers are unable to determine what exactly this reward might be. Materials. Portrait of the enemy. Childeric. Today we focus on Childeric, newly appointed as a Queen's Knight. Just as with Dolph, however, information about him is surprisingly limited. Everyone knew that he was a Godwin faction representative at the Sacred Games, but his activities before then are a complete mystery. The only thing we can say for certain is that he is a member of Nethergate, but while most of Nethergate assassins show no emotion, the cold-hearted, cruel Chidoric is quite different. After gaining control of Dorat, rumor has it that he enforced discipline in the most brutal of ways so violent and cruel, in fact that they are unsuitable for printing in his newspaper. Chidoric is sure to remain a key enemy of the Loyalist army. Let's read newspaper. Issue 15 front page. Dragon Cavalry doesn't respond. After the army's invasion, the prince rushed personally to Sarony Castle. The prince and the Dragon Cavalry had agreed to an alliance in the event of a foreign invasion, but Commander Craig Leadon refused to go through with an attack, not even giving a reason for his action. There are rumors that the Godwin faction is blackmailing the Dragon Cavalry in order to keep them in line. However, with war raging, there is simply no time to investigate the matter any further. Page. Gift Wars Prince Rich Alliance. His Royal Highness has gained more allies in the fight against the gold-playing regime, but Godwin, still determined to wipe out the inferior demi-human races, recently ordered Nethergate to annihilate the Cave Dwarfs, with several murders successfully carried out. However, the Prince's forces happened to pass through the Cave Dwarf's underground lair just as an attack was taking place. In great debt to the Prince, the Cave Dwarfs have sworn vengeance on the Godwin. They are the newest member of the Loyalist army. Serial. Portraits of the enemy. Nethergate. Thanks to the Prince, the Nethergate assassin who attacked the dwarfs were turned back. Upon investigation, these assassins were using a powerful drug called Raging Nostrum, which temporarily gave an ordinary man superhuman strength. When its effect wears off, however, the user invariably dies. At one time, there was a division of Nethergate that specialized in drug development. The traits of the enemy believed that Raging Nostrum and the Dark Arcanum used in the Sacred Games and the attack on the Sun Palace are, without question, creation of that allegedly defunct division. That leads to this question. Could the Nethergate Drug Division have been revived? The traits of the enemy will investigate this matter with the greatest vigilance possible. Issue 610. Front page. Lord Lake, Leklar fall to the enemy. With the armored sword and mountain corps bearing down on Lord Lake and the main force of the Godwin army approaching Leklar, the Loyalist army advanced on both towns. They carry out bold defensive battle in both Lord Lake and Leklar, but in the end, the Prince's forces were hopelessly outnumbered. Not being able to maintain the front lines of either town, they were forced to retreat, regrettably allowing the enemy troops to take both Lord Lake and Leklar. But the defeats were not a total loss. The strong defensive fight shown by the Prince's force gave the townsfolk enough time to evacuate completely. In fact, sources say that the safe evacuation of Lord Lake and Leklar was the reason behind the Loyalist army presence in the first place. Next page. Prince's force hanging on by a thread. After losing Lord Lake and Leklar, the only territories still held by the Prince's forces are Rawfleet and Sarah's Lake Castle. Fortunately, this area can probably withstand quite a siege. But with Lord Godwin gaining much military might, the Prince's outlook seems grim. Still, the Prince's tactician, Lucretia, isn't showing the slightest bit of anxiety, and the Prince and his staff seem to be maintaining their composure as well. How can they be so calm? Does the Prince's inner circle have some sort of trick up their sleeve in the event of an invasion? Here, the traits of the enemy. Jidan Gushu. Jidan Gushu is the leader of the armored sword and mountain corps who invaded both Sibyl and Lord Lake. Many of our readers will also remember that Gushu also once conspired with Lord Barrows. Yesterday, Barrows. Today, Godwin. He certainly lacked loyalty, and he has apparently always been this way. The guy only knows where he is by kissing Commander Sparna's ass. An anonymous armors inside the seat, he'll make the deal with anyone, anywhere, as long as it'll get him ahead. And once the deal over, or even before, he'll stab you right in the back if he finds something better. Okay, that's the newspaper for you. Okay, let's read the paper. This is 16. Okay. This is 17th front page. Prince flew our foes. The prince had to flee his own castle and literally go underground, but recently was able to return safely. First, he managed to secure the services of the faithless dragon cavalry. Then, in an ingenious plan, the enemy occupation met a swift and speedy end. The prince closed the sluice gate that controlled the water level of Sarah's Lake. In the ensuing flood, the enemy forces that had been occupying Sarah's Lake Castle were forced to evacuate. With His Royal Highness recapturing his base of operations, things are looking up for the first time in a long while. Next page. Godwin Dragon Cavalry Blackmail Plot. Downtime has uncovered the truth behind the Dragon Cavalry recent refusal to repel the arms invasion. It turns out that the Godwin took dragon horses full and eggs as hostage, threatening to slaughter them if Sarday Castle did not agree to complete silence and compliance. The Downtowns have learned that it was none other than His Royal Highness the Prince who uncovered the Malvolent conspiracy. The Dragon Cavalry is said to have sworn vengeance on the Godwin for their reprehensible act. Side notes. Armus Warden Marine Corps goes home. The Godwin armies and Sworded Mountain Corps defeat at the Prince Castle has supposedly convinced the Western Marines Corps, which had been occupying Asteris, to withdraw to its native armors without incident. Despite a long period of occupation, Asteris appeared to have suffered little damage. With its return home, the Western Marine Corps has essentially deserted the Southern Mountain Corps, who still occupy Sable. However, the Falia family, the head of the Western Marine Corps, has always been known as moderate arms faction. In fact, the Downtime has learned that the Western Marine Corps may have not been dispatched for fighting purpose at all. So it says they were sent only to keep the more hardline Southern Mountain Corps in check, preventing the wholesale slaughter of the major Falenan cities. Okay. Issues number 18. The Downtime's front page. Dorat and Sable recapture. The Prince Force has recaptured Dorat and Sable in two separate, spectacular military triumphs. After the fight defense of Sarah's Lake Castle, the Prince dispatched units to pursue the fleeing enemy. The main force of the Godwin army holds themselves up in Dorat, where they were defeated. Meanwhile, the armed Southern Mountain Corps fled to Sable, where they were intercepted by the Prince forces and repelled. With these two victories, the Loyalist army has succeeded in regaining the territories originally lost in the Sulking Armors invasion. The Downtown has confirmed that General Bahram Luger, commander of the Godwin army, and General Jidan Gushu of the Armed Southern Mountain Corps both perished during this most recent skirmish. Next page. Prince Rappel's Southern Mountain Corps. Leading the pursuit of the Armed Southern Mountain Corps, His Royal Highness and General Din storm into Sable. They defeat the enemy General Jidan Gushu and completely expel the armed forces, finally liberating Sable from the Iron Fist of Armors. According to information gleaned from the battlefield, part of the reason for the armor's collapse is due to the traitorous action of Southern Mountain Corps Commander Mahasparna, who secretly fled back to her native arm while Gushu was engaged in the defensive. Furthermore, Sparna even demolished Sable's southern gate, creating a blockade so that the prince couldn't pursue her. As a result, Gushu and his men were boxed into Sable, forced to fight to the death. After stabbing her own men in the back, Sparna will surely not be welcomed with open arms and armors. Kills. Portrait of the enemy, Mahasparna. Mahasparna, the great commander of the armored Southern Mountain Corps, cowardly deserted Jidan Gushu in an attempt to save her own skin. But after all the troubles she went through to escape back to Armors, her country probably didn't give her a very warm welcome. The nation of Armors is an alliance of 5 major clans, and the Spartan family is a prestigious member of the Darja clan, one of these 5. The recent invasion of Falena came about because of collusion between the Darja clan and the Godwin faction. However, even from the very beginning, there were apparently many who feared that an invasion would be imprudent. Even King Jalad himself could not have been called enthusiastic about the idea. Even when the invasion ended in failure, the Darja clan turned on Maha, making her a scapegoat for the entire army's defeat. This meant that after being used by the Godwin faction and betraying General Jidan, Maha was betrayed by her own clan as well. Due to her selfish action on the battlefield, portraits of the enemy cannot say that her ultimate fate is undeserved. The ultimate outcome of the army's invasion, then, may well be a positive one. The military failure has greatly weakened the hardline Darja clan's position within the country. Wanting to avoid future conflict, the more moderate East Fog and Madara clan has taken over leadership. Okay. Godwin Stronghold collapse, issue number 19. Godwin Stronghold collapse. The Loyal's army recently puts its troop into Stone Face, the Godwin faction stronghold, and after a fierce engagement, succeeded in capturing the town. A group of former gladiators joined forces with the Prince Force, contributing significantly to the victory. Lord Godwin and the main force had already moved to South Falena, so the capture of Stoneface doesn't mean an end to the war. But General Nofum and Childeric both died during this battle, so combined with the loss of their castle, the Godwin faction has been dealt a heavy blow indeed. Back page, Silence with Starlight Rune. During the recent siege of Stoneface, the Godwin faction once again showed its desperation by using the Twilight Rune. This time, however, it was in the hand of the Prince-owned Silence, not Queen's Knight and Alenia, and its power was noticeably stronger. Silent action are becoming more and more enigmatic and unpredictable. Many in the Prince's inner circle have privately confided to the downtime that Silent's erratic behavior is becoming a grave concern. Serial Portraits of the Enemy, Dilber Nofum. Nofum, who was defeated by the Prince during the siege of Stoneface, was known as a warrior among warriors. Many, including Lord Wilder, lamented his death, as with his friend General Luger, siding with the Godwin faction was Nofum's downfall. However, one can understand Nofum's devotion to the Godwin faction. During the army's invasion 8 years ago, Nofum's unit was so enraged by the brutal tactic of the enemy that they deviated from tactician operation strategic plan and charged the army's forces. But they soon found themselves boxed in by the enemy. Only a violent charge by the Godwin family troops led by Marskal rescued Nofum and his men. From that day forward, Nofum never forgot the debt he owed the Godwin family, and fought to do absolutely anything for Marskal. However, because the devotion led to his ultimate device, Portrait of the Enemy wondered if he was satisfied with his choice in the end. This is number 20. Front page. Sun Palace recapture. Princess rescued. The Prince force have stormed the imperial capital of South Falena, stamping out the last of the Godwin forces. During the assault, Princess Lim's Leia, who had been held captive in the Sun Palace, was finally rescued. The long war against the occupying regime appears to have finally come to an end. Lord Godwin still Sun Runes, flees. The downtimes have learned that Giselle Godwin, pretender to the position of commander of the Queen's Knight, has died in battle. Almost all remaining Godwin underlings, including Queen's Knight Zahak and Alenia, have also fallen in combat. The Godwin faction is now nearly completely annihilated. However, the remains of the occupying regime, including Lord Marskal Godwin himself, have fled South Falena and, in a cowardly and desperate act, seized the Sun Rune and are now at large. With such a powerful weapon still at their disposal, Falena is not yet free from the tyranny of the Godwin faction. Serials. Portrait of the Enemy, Marskal Godwin. Now that he has lost Giselle, his only blood relative, and nearly all of his men, we wonder what Marskal would do now. Marskal had a cousin that he was extremely close to ever since childhood, and they continued to be very close even into adulthood. His cousin was Mardas, the man who married Princess Sakurewar, and Marskal was said to have a very loving relationship with his wife, Rosalyn. But Marskal lost both Mardas and Rosalyn during the succession conflict. While these strategies no doubt influence Marskal's current behavior, there are no excuse for the bloodshed he has brought on this nation. Exit 21, front page. Fetus water level rise rapidly. In an urgent special report, the downtimes have learned that the water level of the Fetus River has risen considerably, quickly reaching dangerous and deadly heights. According to unnamed source within the Loyalist army, it is believed that while Moscow was making his getaway, he used the Sun Rune to melt the Asphalt Mountain Glacier. His Royal Highness has expressed his intention to go there immediately and investigate. Backpage. Yasuna Village hot springs recover. The downtimes have learned that those Yasuna Village whose very existence had been threatened by an unexplained reduction in hot water volume from its famed hot spring, has experienced a sudden, miraculous recovery. Visits at Yasuna, once popular hot spring inn, which had been drastically reduced since the drop in water volume, has now returned to normal. The war is over. An unidentified inn worker's claim became beaming with joy. We're back in business. Material. Portraits of the enemy. The Sun Rune. The Sun Rune is one of the 27 true runes, and also a symbol of the Queendom of Falena. The Sun Rune, however, has revealed its frightening side to its people. This weapon of unimaginable power is now in the possession of Lord Godwin. According to investigation by Zweig and others, an inscription on an ancient tablet gives precise instruction on how to draw out the Sun Rune power. Moscow apparently broke this tablet with him to the Sun Palace. If Moscow is still able to unleash this power, must we fight the Sun Rune as our enemy? And can we hope to win such a battle? Many feel that only the Prince Down Rune and Leon Swalek Rune can stand up to such a brutal power.